Everything started with what seemed like pure luck. I'm Veronica Coleman, 35, with a PhD in botany specializing in mycology. Right now, I'm executing the most critical project of my career, research on plastic degrading fungi, funded by a $1.5 million USDA grant that could revolutionize environmental cleanup. My greatest asset made it all possible, an old farm I inherited from my grandparents. I used a significant portion of the grant to convert the greenhouse into a biosafety Level 2 laboratory. From outside, it looks like a stunning Victorian conservatory, all glass and graceful iron frames. But inside lies serious science: negative pressure ventilation, precise humidity sensors, temperature controls, and thousands of neurospore samples in their dormant stage. Legally, the land is mine, but the contents, every single spore, every piece of equipment, every data point, that's federal property. The USDA doesn't mess around with their investments, and neither do I. My family has never understood what I do. My parents, Robert and Linda, are retired civil servants who spent careers pushing papers. My sister Tiffany, 29, fancies herself a social media influencer. To them, my work has always been playing with mushrooms or growing pretty plants. They've never bothered to learn the difference between a greenhouse and a federal research facility. 5 months ago came the red flag I missed. "Veronica, honey," my mother said during Sunday dinner, "that conservatory of yours would be perfect for Tiffany's wedding, so Instagram-worthy." My fork froze. "Mom, absolutely not. What I have out there is a federal research facility with active biological materials. There are biohazards. There are laws." My father leaned forward with his patronizing expression. "Don't you think you're being dramatic? It's just plants. These are genetically modified organisms that could pose serious health risks if mishandled. The space is under federal jurisdiction. I could lose everything." Tiffany looked up from her phone. "It's my wedding. Family should come first." Family doesn't ask family to commit federal crimes. The table fell silent. I explained the dangers in terms even they could understand. I watched their faces carefully, looking for any sign they grasped the seriousness. When they nodded and changed the subject, I assumed they understood. I was catastrophically wrong. My fatal weakness has always been my need for family validation. Despite their dismissiveness, I still craved their approval. That weakness blinded me to what came next. According to the schedule they gave me, Tiffany's wedding was 3 weeks away. The reality was devastating. It was actually 2 weeks out. They'd lied from the beginning, ensuring I wouldn't be present. But more than that, they'd lied to create an opportunity. 1 week before the actual wedding, my parents arrived with what seemed like a peace offering. "Surprise," my mother announced, waving an envelope. "We got you a 3-day vacation package to Mountain Vista Eco Lodge. You work so hard, honey. You deserve this before being Tiffany's bridesmaid." I looked at the brochure. The timing seemed reasonable. My project was in its automated incubation phase. The systems monitored themselves. Besides, I was under pressure for a comprehensive progress report. 3 days to decompress sounded like responsible self-care. I left Friday at noon, completely relaxed for the first time in months. As I drove toward the mountains, I had absolutely no idea that for the next 72 hours, my conservatory would be turned into hell. At 6 p.m. Friday, exactly 1 hour after my assistant Amy left for the weekend, my parents set their plan in motion. They found a cash-only locksmith who didn't ask questions. When he arrived at my gate, he found what appeared to be a straightforward family emergency. Tiffany appeared on video call, playing her role perfectly. "Hi, I'm the homeowner stuck out of town. These are my parents trying to get inside to feed my parrot. I just need someone to cut that lock." The locksmith bought it. Within 20 minutes, my front gate swung open. Once inside, they encountered what should have stopped them cold: bright yellow warning signs at every entrance. "Warning, Federal Research Site. Biohazard. Authorized personnel only." My mother scoffed. "Robert, take these down. They look absolutely hideous for wedding photos." This was the moment that transformed simple trespassing into federal crime, willful sabotage of federal warning signs. They systematically removed every sign and stacked them behind the toolshed. Then they shut off the security camera system. "Now we can work in peace," my mother said, dusting off her hands. Saturday morning, the event crew arrived, 3 trucks full of professionals who specialized in transforming spaces into wedding venues. By Sunday morning, my scientific sanctuary had become a wedding venue that would have graced any bridal magazine cover. Tiffany arranged 10 camera angles to live stream the event. This wasn't just about celebrating, it was about monetizing it. She promoted it as the most unique wedding venue you've ever seen. None of them had any idea they'd created the perfect conditions for biological disaster. At 11 a.m. Sunday, Tiffany's wedding began. 150 guests filled my conservatory: law partners, investors, the groom's CEO. These were exactly the kind of high-profile individuals whose presence could launch Tiffany's influencer career. Her live stream already had over 300,000 concurrent viewers. The irony was devastating. The more successful the event appeared, the more catastrophic the consequences would be. The fungi I researched weren't inherently dangerous under normal circumstances, but under anaerobic conditions, or when CO2 concentrations exceeded specific thresholds, they produced a mild hallucinogen as a defense mechanism. The wedding guests created the perfect storm. The DJ's bass reverberated through the glass. 150 people breathing together rapidly increased CO2 levels. They'd transformed my carefully ventilated space into a sealed environment, blocking crucial vents with staging. The spore burst began invisibly, silently. Stage 1 was euphoria. Initially, guests felt wedding joy amplified. Music seemed richer, colors more vibrant. Tiffany danced with abandon, shouting into the camera, "This is going to be the most special wedding you've ever seen." For 30 beautiful, terrifying minutes, it looked like she'd achieved everything she dreamed of. Then stage 2 hit: irritation. Joy curdled as every guest experienced the sensation of thousands of ants crawling under their skin. People in designer suits and elegant gowns began clawing at their arms, their necks, their faces. The live stream audience watched in growing confusion as celebration transformed into something disturbing. Stage 3 brought mass hallucination and complete chaos. The groom's CEO lay flat on the grass making swimming motions, believing he was floating in a California ocean. Tiffany's bouquet transformed into a grinning skull. Her Vera Wang dress became, in her perception, an albino python constricting her chest. In front of 300,000 viewers, she began tearing the dress off, shredding thousands of dollars while screaming about snakes that existed only in her mind. They rushed towards exits, but my 3-layered tempered glass proved impossible to break. They were trapped in a transparent prison, panicking like caged animals. Emergency calls flooded dispatch as viewers realized they were witnessing genuine disaster.
At exactly noon, I finished my final lodge activity and began descending the mountain. As cell service returned, my phone exploded with notifications. 47 missed calls from Amy, 16 voicemails. Her messages grew increasingly frantic. "Something's weird with the app. The readings are going crazy. There's a wedding happening at your lab. You need to see the live stream. People are acting insane." With trembling fingers, I found Tiffany's stream. What I saw was a hellscape broadcasting from the place I'd dedicated my career to protecting. Elegant guests writhed on the floor. My sister rocked in a corner, tears streaming. The CEO continued his imaginary swimming. I understood the danger better than anyone. Those spores could affect anyone without proper protection. If this spread beyond the conservatory, we'd face a community-wide health crisis. More than that, I was legally responsible for every organism in that facility under federal law. With steady hands, I dialed the emergency number I'd memorized but never expected to use. "USDA Emergency Response, this is Dr. Martinez." This is Dr. Veronica Coleman, Project ID UMR4471B. I need to report a dangerous level biorelease at my authorized facility. I gave them everything: project codes, specific strains, spore concentration estimates, the number exposed, the livestream link. We're implementing Level 3 containment protocols. Federal response teams are en route. Do not attempt to enter the contaminated area yourself. As I hung up, I understood this call was both an act of conscience and a death sentence. I'd saved lives. The officers who would have rushed in unprepared, my family members slowly poisoning themselves, potentially everyone in my community. But I'd also triggered the most comprehensive federal investigation my field had ever seen. My career was over. My family's freedom was in jeopardy. Everything I'd worked for was about to be destroyed. 3 black helicopters descended like something from an apocalypse movie. Behind them, a convoy of federal SUVs, CDC, USDA, Homeland Security. The wedding guests were corralled on the lawn, wrapped in emergency blankets, still twitching. Your family is claiming they didn't know about the biological hazards, Detective Morrison said. I laughed bitterly. I have 12 years of text messages from my mother complaining about my weird mushroom house. I have emails where I explicitly warned them. They knew. They just didn't care. They released me at midnight. No charges. My family wasn't so lucky. The federal government came down like the wrath of every regulation they'd ignored. Count 1, destruction of federal research property. Each warning sign they'd removed bore a government seal, tampering with a federal research site. Count 2, causing risk of biological release. Even though the spores weren't environmentally dangerous, the potential contamination triggered mandatory federal response. The restitution demands? Grant restitution, $1,500,000. Environmental cleanup, $250,000. Federal fine under Plant Protection Act, $500,000. Total government liability, $2,250,000. My parents' homeowners insurance? Denied. This policy does not cover intentional criminal acts or violations of federal biosafety regulations. Then came the guests' lawsuit. 150 people united in fury and humiliation. Medical costs? $365,000. Personal property damage, destroyed designer clothes, watches, bags, $1,460,000. Emotional distress and public humiliation, $10 million. The live stream went nuclear, 3 million views within 24 hours. These weren't just embarrassed guests. They were public figures whose reputations were currency. Total liability, $14,075,000. My parents didn't have that kind of money. Nobody did. The law firm fired Tiffany's husband within 48 hours. They sold the house they'd lived in for 30 years. Even that wasn't enough. They declared bankruptcy. But bankruptcy doesn't erase restitution to the federal government. That debt follows you forever. Tiffany divorced 6 weeks after the wedding. Her influencer career was finished. Nobody wanted to follow someone whose wedding was synonymous with disaster. I stood at the curb, engine running, watching the bank officer press the bright orange foreclosure seal onto my parents' front door. I hadn't planned to come, but some need for closure had pulled me here. My phone buzzed. A message from Amy. The university confirmed your start date, August 15th. Congrats, Professor Coleman. Professor, not principal investigator, not lead researcher on a $1.5 million grant, just professor, a lecturer position at a state university 3 states away. I'd lost everything: the conservatory, my dream project, a decade of work, sealed by federal order. My professional reputation had taken a hit too. Whispers followed. That's the researcher whose family destroyed the federal grant project. But my family had lost more. They'd lost their home, their savings, their futures. They'd be paying off debt until death. My father would work until his body gave out. My mother's perfect family image was incinerated. The highway stretched before me, heading west toward my new life. I'd packed everything I owned into this car.
I had no furniture. It had all been destroyed by the hazmat team. I had my clothes, my books, my diplomas. Starting over meant starting with nothing, but nothing was better than being tied to people who would destroy everything you built just to save a venue rental fee. I merged onto the interstate and accelerated, leaving behind the town where I'd grown up, the family who'd betrayed me, and the dream project that had consumed a decade of my life. I'd lost the grant, but my family had lost everything because of greed. That was the fair price of natural justice. And somehow, driving away from the wreckage, I felt lighter than I had in years.